TC3 students? We are so excited to be with you again for another episode of Cooking with Miles. Now, today I got some new guests with us. So we have Tori Brown, we have Emma Zayak, and Tori obviously has broken the chair already. And then we have Lily Brown as well. And we're so excited just because they were the best cooks from last week. And they did an awesome job sending in their pictures of what they made. And so they're with us today. We want to welcome them and are so excited that they're going to cook with us. Now, today we're going to cook cilantro lime chicken and some rice. So if you don't have your ingredients, check out what we got. All right, now that everybody has their ingredients, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So girls, I'm gonna ask you to do a couple things for me. Emma, can you go ahead and cut this lime? Now, this lime, right, has a perfectly capable paring knife, just cute and petite. So I'm gonna let you rock away with that, all right? Thank you. And then, Tori, can you pluck this cilantro for me? And then you can put the stems right there. And then all that you see here, Lily, you got some salt, some cumin, some garlic, some pepper, and obviously a little bit of olive oil and some red pepper over here for you too. Can you go ahead and sprinkle some of that into the chicken for me, and then we'll go ahead and get started, okay? No, you don't even have to mix it. You're gonna put the ingredients in. Is that okay? Okay. All right, perfect. All right. So as they do that, we're also gonna make some rice today. So I got a rice cooker over here. We're gonna go ahead and get the rice started. Now today, we're gonna look at the early church, right? We had so many different topics that we were gonna pick out and talk about throughout the next couple of weeks, but I think that the coronavirus is a perfect place to start. But if we're gonna look at the coronavirus, we have to look at how the church in general responded to plagues and all kinds of different stuff in the past. Because I think they'll give us a perfect stepping point of where we should start too. Now with this rice, before I get into all that, if you're ever cooking rice, right, you always are worried about how to measure it out, right? How much water to rice ratio do you need to have, right? The bags tell you all kinds of stuff. Can I show you a little trick real quick? So instead of measuring it all out, you look at your index finger. It doesn't matter how big or small your index finger is, I promise, okay? And that first line that's on your index finger, that's where you want the water to come to. So I don't have enough water in there yet because it's only halfway to that first line on my index finger. So I'm gonna add some more water, but once it's to that first line, it's enough. I promise, every time, believe me, okay? We're gonna add some more water to this thing. Guys, Nala's back, so if you hear random noise, it's Nala. Perfect. All right. So we're gonna get this rice cooking. Are you guys all done cutting and adding the ingredients? Yeah? Uh-oh. Lilo's adding the salt. You already add the olive oil? You're doing the cilantro? All of it's going in. Pepper. Not all the pepper, just a little bit of pepper. That's perfect. I'm sorry. I know. I apologize. Are you all done? Okay, cool. And you're almost done with the cilantro? Perfect. Okay. So, how we're gonna do this, right, is we're gonna squeeze the lime onto the chicken. All right, squeeze the lime, squeeze the lime. I like that you cut them in 4 wedges. I can dig it. I appreciate that, Emma. Good job, well done. And you didn't cut yourself with a paring knife. It's a big deal. All right, so let's talk about the early church, right? But before we address the early church, I wanna ask you guys, what's that thing in life, or that moment in life so far that's made you feel the most uncomfortable? It's like an awkward moment. Yeah, your eyes are really, really big, so I'm excited about this one. But what moment in life has made you extremely uncomfortable? You can be as deep as you want, and you can be as non-deep. So what's the word for that? Shallow, that's it. Who's gonna go first here? You can think, go ahead. I'll mix this up, I got time. I got none of the time.
I vote Tori goes first.
Oh, you vote Tori goes first. If you don't know, viewers, these two are sisters, which is why I have Emma sitting in between. Emma's supposed to stop all fights between Tori and Lily, so we'll see if she does a really good job. So far, she's got an A. Thank you. Come on, uncomfortable moment.
Right now.
Right now is uncomfortable.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Right now is uncomfortable.
All
Why?
these cameras.
Why is it uncomfortable? All the cameras.
Yep.
Okay. What else?
Lights.
Lights. All right.
Mhm.
Well, you two can't use this moment because she used it. So, what else?
Getting caught in a lie.
Getting caught in a lie. Yeah, that's pretty uncomfortable. Pretty awkward too.
It's
Okay. All right. It really depends on who the lie is too. Now, lying isn't good in general, but really, whether or not you get caught is scary based on who's catching you. You still shouldn't lie. All right, okay, getting caught in a lie. What's yours? I'm interested in this one.
Wait,
Go.
forgot the question.
Huh?
Forgot the question.
The question was, in what moment in life has made you feel the most uncomfortable?
I don't know.
Come on.
I mean, like,
This conversation right here?
yeah. He's over there trying to tell me that I'm uncomfortable when I fall, but like I fall
When
all
you
the
fall,
time.
you fall often, so you're used to that. All right, so when you fall, before when you fell all the time and you weren't used to it, you were uncomfortable. No?
Not really.
All right, well,
Falling.
before we put this in the fridge, I'm gonna cut up like half of this cilantro, and then we'll get the cilantro on there, and then we'll get going, all right? So here's half the cilantro. Now, with the moments that you feel uncomfortable, I think about the early church. Now, the early church in like 250 years after Jesus had died, right? The early church was at its, let's say, peak, okay? They were starting to fellowship together. Clergymen such as like bishops and pastors, they were actually getting roles and ranks within the church. But meanwhile, the Roman Empire was growing. And while the Roman Empire was growing, they were trying to shut this quote unquote Jesus movement down in a big way. And so they were persecuting and killing and oppressing Christians or new followers of Jesus all the time. And so we get to a point in the Roman Empire, which you oftentimes will study in school, we get to a point in the Roman Empire where my tongues go. Sorry. Thank you. We get to a point in the Roman Empire where Christians are not only being persecuted, but the Roman Empire seems to be in a state of war constantly. They're always fighting. There seems to be famine all around the Roman Empire, which stretches from obviously Rome and Italy all the way to like North Africa, right? This empire was absolutely massive, which was really cool, actually. But within that, in AD 250, something happened, kind of like something happened now, right? There seemed to be all kinds of stuff going wrong, right? Not only was famine happening, not only were they always in war, right? But also this plague came too, this like deathly plague. It's kind of like 2020 so far, right? Like Kobe Bryant died, all kinds of sad stuff was happening. And now, like, we're experiencing coronavirus. This is, like, it's sad. So far in 2020, it's, like, not a good year, right? And so, for us, it kind of seems like the end of the world. And for the Roman Empire at the time, it did too. But the cool thing is that the church was there. And the cool thing now is that the church is here too. So, the church had to respond, right? The church had to respond in such a way that people that were experiencing panic and discomfort and freaking out because they didn't know what to do, the church had to respond in love and in peace and in humility and serve in such a cool way. Now, this plague, right, was killing a lot of people. They have it documented that in Rome, that it killed up to 5,000 people in one day. Could you imagine, right? Could you imagine coronavirus killing 5,000 people in one city in one day? Well, just think about that for a moment, because not only that, but it was affecting people's relatives and people's brothers and sisters, and as a result, people weren't being very Christ-like. Actually, they were throwing like these relatives and siblings and people like that out of the house so that they wouldn't get infected, and these people were on the streets dying. And the streets weren't like ours now. They were like walking barefoot in like dirt roads and all kinds of stuff, and so they would be infected extremely easily. And so the church had to stand up and the church had to do something. So the question is, what did they do? Well, let's cook this chicken and we'll come back to that. All right. So this chicken is gonna get cooked on the stovetop for but a moment. And so I don't burn the oil, because you know like how you put oil in the pan and sometimes it just like or smokes up because you let the pan get too hot before you put the oil in, you know, and it burns the oil. So first, so you don't burn the oil, put a little bit of butter in, all right, and a little olive oil. And then see how these bad boys work. So we're gonna add the chicken in. We're gonna let it cook on each side for about 6 minutes. All right, perfect. Okay, so, oh wow, that was a good moment. I missed something. I missed something very important, very drastic. Oh my gosh. All right, so when we think about the early church, right, and think about like how they responded to this plague, it was called the Cyprian plague, right? Really weird. Why Cyprian? Well, Cyprian actually was the name of a bishop who like lived in North Africa, and he like documented everything, right? Well, this plague started in like Ethiopia and then somehow found its way all the way to Rome, killing vast amounts of people. Well, the church saw that there was a need, right? There were loved ones being thrown out of their homes. There were people, Christians and non-Christians alike, that were like being oppressed or being kicked out of where they lived because their family members did not want them to experience, right, or didn't want to experience themselves this drastic, you know, illness, right? And so we look at it and we look at like different authors and different people that have talked about this plague and the church's response. And one of the church's like main responses was like, man, how can we love these people in the same way that Christ has loved us? Right? And so they went out and they automatically served the people of Rome. All right, you had a question for me, Emma. What was it?
What's up with your big chef apron?
Yeah, this big chef apron. Actually, it's not my doing. Actually, shout out to the Montgomerys. They thought that on screen I needed an apron if I was going to be a chef, and so obviously they didn't think that I was a small chef or an intermediate size chef. They thought I was a big chef, so they gave me the big chef apron, and that's what I got. So we're just going to embrace that. Is that okay?
Hey, big chef.
Thank you, Emma. So my name now is Big Chef to Emma, and we're just gonna go from there. All right, the chicken's cooking. As the chicken is cooking, one of the quotes and one of the things that one of the bishops said about the Christian response to what was happening in the city of Rome and the plague that was happening to people is he was like, you know what? The cool thing about the followers of Jesus in this time is that they are willing basically to go into harm's way to save people and to show people the love of Christ. They were more concerned about people hearing the gospel than they were about their own health, which is drastic, especially when we think about like, man, am I willing to go and talk to somebody that like if they breathe on me, like I may get coronavirus? And what the Christians were doing in this season, right, in AD 250, is they were literally like picking people up off of the street, like trying to nurse them back to health and automatically like saving them, right? Teaching them who Jesus was. These people were connecting to the life-changing power of Jesus Christ. And then the follower of Jesus Christ was getting sick and dying. But they were getting sick and dying knowing that they had saved the soul of somebody else, right? And so the question remains is like, what are we to do? Right? In this season of like total chaos, obviously we see how the early church responded to plagues and to disease. What are we to do? Right? And what are the right things to do in this season? Jesus says this in John chapter 13. He says, I have a new command for you, right? A new commandment. It is to love one another, right? Simply that. Like, you will know my disciples by the way that they love one another. And that is exactly what the church, what the early church did. And so the question is, how can we do that same thing? Well, before we get to that, let's flip this chicken and make sure the other side and the skin gets real crispy before we throw this bad boy in the oven. All right? So, how many of you have cooked chicken before? All three? All right. How many of you, the question is, are scared to cook chicken? Nobody? Nobody? Okay. All right. Most people, some people, let's not say most, are scared to cook chicken because you don't really ever know when it's done. And chicken's not something that you can play with and be like, I can be halfway done, we'll be all right. Nah, that thing not done, you're done for. Like, you are done. So let's pray that I don't do that to you today. But I think we'll be all right. Is that okay?
I ate raw chicken once.
You ate raw chicken once? Now what happened?
Nothing. I felt nauseous.
Nothing? So you're telling our viewers right now that they can eat raw chicken.
No, I'm not. It was an accident.
You're promoting raw chicken
No,
eating.
It was an accident.
In a time
I was
of Corona,
cooking.
you're promoting salmonella.
I was cooking
That's
a while
fantastic.
ago. It was like a year ago.
Don't have Corona?
And I
Get
was
salmonella.
cooking.
That sounds like an ad to me.
And,
Way to go, Lily.
and it wasn't fully preheated when I put the chicken in. So then like I took it out and it looked done, but I forgot to cut it. So I stirred it. So like it was just me and my sister. And so I took a giant bite out of it. And I'm like, wow, that's really salty.
Raw chicken is salty, that's what you're telling me.
And then I realized how raw it was.
Ah,
So.
did you go through with the process? You swallowed it and everything.
Yeah.
That's really disgusting. Actually, I'm very sorry for you, right? So, in light of how you know now how the early church responded, right? In light of that, how do you think we should respond to what's happening now? Right?
The same way they did.
Huh?
The same way they did.
The same way they did? All right, now what does that look like?
That looks like putting others before yourself.
Oh, I like
Be
it.
selfless.
I like it. Selflessness. Remember that word, selflessness. We're going to come back to that. What else you got?
Helping out in the hospital.
Helping out in hospitals if they allow you.
Yeah.
No, you can don't you dare. Don't you dare. What does that look like? What could that look like for you, Lily, specifically?
Say the question.
What does it look like for us to serve our community now in light of how you know the early church responded? I don't know. What? Say it. Eat raw chicken? Is that what you said? You told them to get salmonella? That does not sound like a good idea.
Well, you can get the doctor's variety to get.
Doctor's variety of sickness? This sounds horrible. Please take this all out of there, actually. Golly. But there are some specific ways that we can be helpful, and we can also be the capital C church, right? There are some specific ways that we can do that now in dealing with what we're dealing with and what our community and nation is dealing with, right? The first one is very simple, right? It's make sure that you are staying abreast or staying aware of what's happening from our lawmakers and what they're telling us to do, right? Like we have to respect the authority that God has placed us under, right? And that means our president, that means our governor, and that means our law officials as well, right? And so if they tell us to stay home, right? But also, right, we can be smart in how we love people. And so even if you are practicing social distancing, which obviously we are not right now, right? Yeah, tell them to back away. Even if you're practicing social distancing, you can still love someone from a distance. And so whether that's your neighbor or you drop off cookies at their home, you can be around the door as they open it up and be like, yo, take these, please, real quick. There are so many different ways that we can love our fellow neighbors and serve them in very unique ways while still making sure that we respect not only their health, but ours, right? And so your word selfless comes into play in a very, very, very real way, right? Because for us as a student ministry and for students in general, that's what we have to be thinking about. Last week, this thing of coronavirus was not a big deal for students, wasn't a big deal for 20 age people or older, right? And so we didn't really think much about it. We were like, yo, we can still go to the beach and goof off and play around and do the things that we do because this thing doesn't really affect us. But the whole purpose of being selfless is not thinking about yourself, but thinking about others around you, right? And how what you do can possibly impact them, or how they may be impacted even though you may not be even doing anything. And so the question is like, how can I serve my brothers and sisters best, and how can I see it from their perspective and not my own? That's what selflessness is, and that's what we can put on display in this season. So, great job, Emma.
We don't want to be a little C church.
We don't want to be a little C church. I like that. That's the new hashtag this week. It's not who's delicious. It's we don't want to be a little C church. All right, so this is done here on the stovetop. We're going to go in the oven with this bad boy for about 12 minutes. The oven's on 425, and it's going to slip right on in there for just a moment. All right, so that's going to go in for about 12 minutes. We know that there are two things that we can do and how we can respond to coronavirus as the church, right? The first one is like be calm in the midst of like panic and chaos, right? Like know and understand that Jesus is our peace in this, right? That doesn't mean that we're gonna be comfortable, right? Because like peace doesn't equal comfort, right? Peace just means like there is peace in the midst of chaos. That's what like Jesus provides us with, and he gives us the Holy Spirit to give us peace, and we get to put that on display in front of like friends and family that may not have a relationship with him, so that when they do ask like, why are you so calm in the midst of like all of this, that's when you get to point them to Jesus. So that's first, right? That's easy. The second one is selflessness, right? We get to be selfless in the middle of a season where like people are stripping every piece of food or toilet paper off of the daggone shelves, and we can say, you know what, like I don't need both. I just need one, you know, and we get to think about others in this season where everybody else is only thinking about themselves. The early church knew that, right? When people were being thrown out of their own homes because their family members were only thinking about their own health and they were being selfish, the church was selfless. And so now is another season in life where we get to do that. Well, there's one more thing that we get to do, but before we get to that, I'm going to put this in the rice because I think the rice is pretty much done, and the chicken will be done soon too. So let's get this over to the rice. This is just some extra cilantro that we have. If you like Chipotle's rice, Chipotle does cilantro rice as well. So you do a little cilantro, right? You do about a half a tablespoon of butter here. Throw the butter in there, and then I got to grab the salt right behind me, and you just do a dash of salt. Once you're done there, you mix that on in, and your rice will be finished. All right, ladies. So your rice is almost done, girls. Uh-oh, I hear laughter. Hey, so Emma, you know how you were in charge of making them not fight? Well, ironically enough, the moment that you left, they began to fight. So I don't know if I should really blame you or not because you weren't here. So the question is, who should I blame? Lily.
I am innocent.
Of course, Tori says Lily.
I plead.
Doesn't sound very selfless, Tori. All right, so we got our rice here. There's a minute left on the chicken, and then we'll be ready to go. Now, before that minute ends, as I'm talking, it's probably going to go off. Before that minute ends, I want to tell you the last thing that we can do as the body of Christ in this season. I think it's really cool, especially for our tight-knit community, right? And that is spend money in a loving and economic way. Now, when I say that, you're like, wait, what am I going to spend money on? Everything's closed. Well, there are a ton of small businesses that are struggling right now, right? And the way that we can love on small businesses is by going into small businesses that we know and helping small business owners by grabbing like a gift card or something that you know you may not use right now, but you'll use like when they're back and in full business. So small restaurants that you know, smaller bookstores that you know of. It's an easy way to serve our community and show the love of Jesus in a very, very, very real and practical way. Hey, look at that. That's like almost perfect timing. All right, let's grab the chicken out, and we'll get you young ladies fed. All right. Chicken looks perfect. All right. Okay. So, who's hungry? All three. Oh, that's good. Okay, good. Okay. So let's get you guys plated up. Every time. Why do I always lose my tongs? Huh? Did I? And I didn't wash them? Well, that's a fail. All right. Well, let's wash these real quick. Then we'll plate up.
Come on, big stuff. Get your game on.
Oh. Now, as I plate up, let's see if I can do this without failing. Where'd this go? So I'm gonna burn my hand. Do you guys have a cast iron skillet at home?
Yep.
All right. Fun fact. Fun fact. Do you wash your cast iron skillet?
No.
Oh, the skin fell out. You don't wash it?
We don't have one. Yeah, we wash it.
You wash it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you wash it with soap?
Yep.
Okay. So, my dad has a cast iron skillet that's been handed down to him from like generations, right? And I was in high school and I didn't know that for some reason you're not supposed to wash cast iron skillets with soap because they've been seasoned basically already. And so you don't want to wash it to get rid of the seasonings on it. And so I had just made like a grilled cheese or something on my dad's cast iron skillet. And I washed it, trying to be a good son. Washed it with soap. My dad came home and he was like, "Who washed my cast iron skillet? It was given to my mom by her mom and it's been seasoned for generations." And I was like, "I didn't wash it. I did not wash it. I did not wash it." Well, obviously I had washed it and I was in a lot of trouble. So, fun fact, if you wash your cast iron skillet, don't do it. All right, so here's your cilantro lime chicken and your cilantro lime rice. You're the youngest, so you get the first one. How about that? We'll go opposites today.
I have patience. I can wait.
Well, and Tori, here you go, dear. You guys are awesome. Now, if you want seconds, there's more here. This rice is really sticking to the spoon. You're welcome. All right. So, one last thing, and that's simply this, right? Jesus was talking and he was standing and he was saying, you know, whenever you serve the least of these, he was saying, you know, when I was sick, you gave me food, when I was sick, you like nursed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. And when I was hungry, like you gave me food, right? And the question, rhetorical question that he asked himself and told him, the righteous ones will ask this. And it was simply this. He says, you'll ask, when did we do this for you, Jesus? Like, when did we ever give you food? When did we ever give you drink? And he says, whenever you do this for the least of these, you also do it for me, right? And like, I think about that often, especially in this season that we're in, when we think about those that are suffering, those that may be experiencing the coronavirus, or those that may not have the financial means to be able to not work right now as a result of the coronavirus, or maybe just somebody that needs to be encouraged, right? These individuals Christ talks about as being the least of these. These individuals Christ talks about as, when we serve them, we serve him, right? And so he says, like, do that for one another, because when you do that for the least, you're doing that for me too. And so that's simply it for today's lesson, right? It's like cilantro lime chicken and rice, but we also know and understand that, like, when we serve the least of these, we also serve our Savior Jesus too. So go ahead, eat up. Tell me if it's good or bad. Hey, I'm not gonna let you watch whether or not they eat and whether or not they like it, because I want you to try this on your own. So actually make sure that you cook alongside of me, take pictures of it, and that way we can get you on the show next week. We'd love to have you in these 3 seats. So send your pictures, DM them to Instagram or to our Facebook page. We'd love that you join us next week with Cooking with Miles. Thanks.